Arnold Paule was a young Serbian soldier. In 1725 he served in Greece. He said that a vampire attacked him there. But Paule found the vampire's grave and burned it. He thought this would stop him from becoming a vampire. After some time Paule returned to his village. One day he climbed on a haycart, but he slipped. He broke his neck and died after a few days. The villagers buried him, but soon strange things started to happen. Some villagers said they saw Paule at night. Others said he came to them in dreams. In the morning these people felt very weak and tired. Weeks passed. Mysterious deaths began in the village. People suddenly became sick and died. Some of the dead had said before that they saw Paule in their dreams. The villagers were very afraid. Finally the villagers opened Paule's grave. They covered his body with garlic. They put a wooden stake into his heart. They thought the curse was finished. Paule's grave was opened, and a stake was put in his heart. The villagers felt safe, but this peace did not last long. After some years, strange deaths started again. People were afraid. 6 years later, a vampire outbreak happened in the village. Many people became sick and died. Some bodies taken from the graves looked fresh, like they were still alive. This made the villagers even more afraid. Doctors and soldiers came from Austria. They opened 14 graves. They studied the bodies carefully. 12 of them were called, without doubt, vampires. This report was very shocking for the villagers. Some bodies had red faces. They looked like they had just died. Some had longer nails and hair. These signs made the villagers believe even more that vampires were real. The villagers wanted to destroy the bodies. They used garlic. They put stakes in the hearts. Some bodies were burned. They thought the curse would end. But fear stayed in the village. This event did not stay only in the village. The Austrian doctor's report spread across Europe. People believed more strongly that vampires were real. Medveda became famous for vampire stories. Years after Paule's death, fear returned to the village. People heard strange sounds at night. Some saw familiar faces in their dreams. These faces were of dead people. In the morning they felt weak and sick. Deaths increased in the village. Young and old, men and women, suddenly became sick and died in a few days. The villagers thought this was not a normal illness. Many of the dead had said they saw Paule or other dead people in their dreams. The Austrian army came to the village. Doctors and soldiers opened the cemetery. They studied the bodies one by one. Some bodies were not rotten. Their faces were red, like they had just died. Some had blood on their lips. These sights shocked everyone. The doctors wrote a report. 12 of 14 bodies were called vampires. This report spread in Europe. People believed even more that vampires were real. Medveda was now known as a place of fear and curse. The villagers gathered again to destroy the bodies. They used garlic. They put stakes in the hearts. Some bodies were burned. They thought the curse would end. But fear still stayed in the village. People locked their doors and closed their windows every night. Children were afraid to go outside. Women prayed, and men kept watch. Life in the village had changed. Everyone worried that the vampires would return. Paule's story continued to move like a shadow in the village. People felt uneasy even during the day. Children did not play outside, and old people were afraid to leave their houses. At night everyone locked their doors and closed their windows. Silence ruled the village. Some villagers began to see their dead relatives in dreams. These dreams felt very real. In the morning they woke up tired and weak. This made the fear in the village stronger. People started to believe that even dreams were dangerous. The Austrian doctor's report had a big effect in the village. When people heard that even scientists accepted vampires, they became more afraid. Rumors spread quickly. Everyone told new stories to each other. Some villagers put garlic in their houses to protect themselves. Some used holy water. Men kept watch at night. Women prayed. But all these actions did not reduce the fear. Life in the village was completely different now. People could not return to normal life. Every day a new rumor appeared, and every night brought new fear. Medveda continued to live under the shadow of the vampire curse. Fear in the village grew day by day. People could not find peace even during the day. Children did not play outside, and old people were afraid to leave their homes. Everyone told vampire stories, and each new rumor made the fear stronger. Some villagers said they saw strange shadows at night. These shadows sometimes passed in front of houses, sometimes appeared behind windows. People believed these shadows came from the dead. Everyone stayed quietly in their homes and prayed. The men of the village began to keep watch at night. They walked with stakes and garlic in their hands. But they saw nothing. Still, fear grew inside them, because every morning there was news of another death. Some bodies taken from the graves still looked alive. Their faces were red, and their eyes were open. These sights brought deep fear to the villagers' hearts. People now believed completely that vampires were real. The Austrian doctor's report made the fear even stronger. The fact that scientists accepted vampires was a big shock for the villagers. Everyone thought the curse would never end. Life in the village was completely changed. People were silent even during the day. Children's laughter was not heard. Women prayed all the time, and men kept watch all the time. Medveda continued to live under the shadow of the vampire curse. Fear in the village became part of daily life. People felt worried even when they looked at each other in the morning. Every new death brought more fear to their hearts. Children were silent, women prayed all the time, and men continued to keep watch at night. Some villagers said they heard footsteps in front of their doors at night. The steps were heavy and slow. But when they went outside, they saw nobody. This made their belief stronger. For them, the vampires had really returned. The old people began to remember old stories. They spoke about Paule's curse and said his spirit was still walking in the village. Young people listened with fear and could not sleep at night. Some bodies were taken again from the graves. Doctors and soldiers studied them. They saw bodies that were not rotten, faces that were red, and lips with blood. These sights made the fear even greater. People now believed completely that vampires were walking in the village. The villagers gathered again to destroy the bodies. They used garlic, they put stakes in the hearts, and some bodies were burned. But even these actions could not remove the fear inside people. Everyone thought the curse would continue. Medveda was no longer a normal place. Silence, fear, and rumors spread to every corner of the village. People could not find peace even during the day, and at night they waited in fear. The vampire curse was like a heavy shadow over the village. Fear now controlled everyone's life. People looked at each other with suspicion even in the daytime. Every new death brought more worry to their hearts. Children were quiet, women prayed, and men kept watch at night. Some villagers said they saw strange lights outside their houses at night. The lights shone for a short time and then disappeared. People believed these lights were a sign of vampires. Everyone stayed quietly in their homes, waiting with fear for the morning. The old people reminded others of past events. They spoke again about Paule's curse and said his spirit was still in the village. Young people listened with fear and could not sleep at night. Again, some bodies were taken from the graves. Doctors and soldiers studied them. They saw bodies that were not rotten, faces that were red, and lips with blood. These sights made the fear stronger. People now believed completely that vampires were in the village. The villagers gathered again to destroy the bodies. They used garlic, they put stakes in the hearts, and some bodies were burned. But even these actions could not remove the fear inside people. Everyone thought the curse would continue. Medveda village was now known for silence and fear. People could not find peace even in the daytime, and at night they waited in terror. The vampire curse was like a heavy shadow over the village. The villagers were tired of living in fear all the time. Every day brought news of another death, and every night new rumors spread. But in these dark days, some people began to search for hope. They wanted to believe that one day the curse would end. Some villagers studied old books and prayers. They looked for new ways to protect themselves from vampires. They tried to find methods other than garlic and stakes. Some believed in the power of holy water, while others wanted to test old spells written in legends. A group of young men went to the mountains outside the village. They believed a monk living there had knowledge about vampires. The monk listened to them patiently and said, "Fear makes you weak, hope makes you strong. To protect yourself from vampires, you must first keep your heart pure." These words were very important for the villagers. People began to hold on not only to fear but also to hope. At night they felt stronger when they prayed. Men encouraged each other while keeping watch. Women told their children stories full of hope. Slowly, a change came to the village. Fear was still there, but hope was born beside it. People now believed that one day the curse would end. Medveda had found a small light in the darkness. The search for hope slowly turned into a struggle. People no longer wanted to live only in fear. Men gave each other courage during the night watch, and women told hopeful stories to children. Everyone tried to believe that the curse would end one day. Some young villagers remembered the monk's words, "Keep your heart pure, hold on to hope, not fear." These words became a guide for them. People now tried not only to protect themselves from vampires but also to find strength inside their hearts. The villagers began to act together. Garlic was hung in front of houses, holy water was prepared. Men made wooden stakes, women prepared prayers. Everyone knew their role. A spirit of unity was born in the village. Those who kept watch at night no longer felt alone. They knew their friends were beside them. This unity gave courage to the villagers. Fear was still present, but now hope was also there. On some nights the villagers prayed together. They lifted their hands to the sky and asked for the curse to end. These prayers brought peace to the village. In the morning people woke up feeling a little stronger. Medveda village was still under the shadow of the vampire curse. But now there was not only fear. People were fighting with hope. In the darkness, a small light was born, and this light gave courage to their hearts. Hope in the village was turning into a confrontation. People prepared to face the vampires instead of running away. Men made stakes and brought garlic. Women learned their prayers by heart. Even children watched the preparations quietly and felt the change in the village. One night strange sounds came from the cemetery outside the village. The ground seemed to move. The villagers gathered their courage and went to the cemetery. They carried torches. Lights shook in the dark, hearts beat with fear. But this time they did not run away. From one grave a body tried to rise. The villagers shouted, but they did not escape. Together they moved forward. Stakes were pushed, prayers were spoken. At that moment the villagers faced their fear. The vampire was no longer only a rumor, it was standing in front of them. This confrontation gave great courage to the villagers. Now there was not only fear. People saw that when they acted together, they were strong. Fighting vampires seemed possible. Another light shone in the darkness. After this event, everyone in the village felt different. Fear was still there, but courage was also present. People now thought not only about living under the shadow of vampires, but also about fighting them. Medveda had begun to face the curse. The confrontation that began with hope was now turning into a big battle. People decided to put fear aside and act together. Men prepared stakes, women repeated their prayers, young people made torches. Everyone in the village had a role. One night the ground in the cemetery moved again. This time the villagers did not run. Together they went to the cemetery. Torches lit the darkness, hearts beat with fear, but nobody stepped back. Bodies came out of the ground and walked toward the villagers. People shouted, but they did not lose courage. Stakes were pushed, prayers were spoken, garlic was thrown around. For the first time the villagers fought openly with vampires. The battle lasted long. Some villagers were hurt, some trembled with fear. But because they were united, they did not retreat. Everyone supported each other. They saw that together they were strong. In the end, some vampires were destroyed. The villagers won a great victory. This victory gave them even more courage. Now there was not only fear, but also hope and strength. Medveda village was still under the shadow of the curse. But people were no longer only victims, they were fighters. In the darkness, a light was born, and this light gave courage to their hearts. After the great battle in the village, people felt a little more relaxed. Facing the vampires gave them courage. Now there was not only fear, but also hope. The villagers saw that when they acted together, they were strong. This thought gave them new confidence. In the morning the village was quiet. But this silence came not from fear, but from peace. People felt calmer when they looked at each other. Children began to laugh again. Women prayed in their homes with hope in their eyes. Men put away their stakes and torches, but courage stayed in their hearts. The old people began to tell new stories to the young. This time the stories were not only full of fear. They also had hope and courage. The young listened without trembling and felt strong. The Austrian doctor's report was still discussed. But for the villagers it was no longer a source of fear, only a reminder. They had faced vampires and survived. So the words of the report no longer frightened them. Life in the village slowly returned to normal. People worked in the fields during the day and sat peacefully in their homes at night. Fear had not completely ended, but hope was stronger. Medveda was starting to come out of the darkness. In the days after the great battle, people began to tell each other what they had seen and felt. These stories quickly became legends. Now the village had not only fear, but also tales of bravery. Children listened to these stories from their elders before sleeping. The courage of the villagers who fought vampires was seen as heroism. Days of fear slowly turned into tales of heroes. When the Austrian doctor's report spread across Europe, Medveda became famous. People began to call it the center of vampires. For the villagers, this was both frightening and a source of pride, because they had faced the curse and survived. Over time, the events of the village entered books, songs, and stories. The name Medveda was no longer only a village, but a legend. People were afraid to visit, but also curious. The villagers tried to continue their lives. Fields were planted again, children played again. But everyone knew the past of this village would never be forgotten. The days full of vampires had become part of history and legend. Medveda village was remembered as a place that faced darkness and found light. People saw that courage existed together with fear. Because of this, the story of the village continued to be told from one generation to another. The Saga of Eric the Wanderer, Part 1. Long ago, in the cold lands of the north, there lived a young warrior named Eric. He was strong, but his heart was full of questions. He wanted to know the secrets of the world, the meaning of courage, and the path of destiny. Eric grew up in a small village by the fjord. The people of the village were fishermen and hunters. They told stories of gods, giants, and dragons. Every night, the old men spoke of Odin, Thor, and Loki. These stories filled Eric's mind with dreams. One winter, a great storm came. The sea was wild, and the sky was black. In the middle of the storm, Eric saw a strange light on the horizon. It was not the moon, and it was not fire. It was something unknown. He felt that this light was calling him. The next day, Eric spoke to his father. "I must follow the light," he said. His father was afraid. "The world outside is dangerous. Giants live in the mountains, and dragons sleep under the sea. Stay here, my son." But Eric could not stay. His heart was restless. He took his sword, his shield, and a small boat. He said goodbye to his family and sailed into the unknown. Days passed. The sea was calm, then wild, then calm again. Eric fought against waves and hunger. He sang songs to keep his courage. At night, he looked at the stars and asked the gods for guidance. Finally, he reached a strange island. The land was dark, and the trees were tall. The air was heavy, and the ground was full of bones. Eric knew this was not a normal place. He felt the presence of something ancient. Suddenly, a voice spoke from the shadows. "Welcome, wanderer. You have entered the land of forgotten spirits." Eric raised his sword, but the voice laughed. "You cannot fight shadows. You must face your own fear." Eric's journey had begun. Eric sailed for many days. His boat was small, and the sea was wide. He felt lonely, but he remembered the strange light that called him. One night, while the stars shone above, he heard a soft voice singing from the shore of another island. He followed the sound and found a young woman named Astrid. She was beautiful, with golden hair and eyes like the sea. Astrid was not afraid of him. She smiled and said, "You are far from home, wanderer. Why do you travel alone?" Eric told her about the light, the curse of fear, and his search for destiny. Astrid listened carefully. She touched his hand and said, "Courage is not only in battle. Courage is also in love. If you carry love in your heart, you will never be alone." From that night, Astrid stayed with him. She walked beside him in the forest, sang songs when he was tired, and gave him hope when he felt weak. Eric's heart was no longer restless. He felt a new strength, born from love. But Astrid had her own secret. She was the daughter of a spirit of the sea. Her mother was a guardian of the waves, and her father was a mortal man. Astrid lived between two worlds. She told Eric, "If you continue your journey, you will face giants and dragons. But you will also face the truth about me." Eric looked into her eyes and said, "I do not fear the truth. I will fight giants, I will face dragons, and I will love you, Astrid, no matter what world you belong to." Together they walked into the unknown. The wind was cold, but their hands were warm. The saga of Eric was no longer only about destiny. It was also about love. Eric and Astrid walked together through the dark forest. The wind was cold, but their hands were warm. They knew that danger was near. The monk's words echoed in their minds. "Fear makes you weak, hope makes you strong." One night, the ground shook. The trees moved, and the sky turned red. From the mountain cave came a terrible sound, the roar of a dragon. Its eyes burned like fire, and its wings covered the moon. Astrid held Eric's hand. "This is the test," she whispered. "If we face the dragon together, our love will be stronger than fear." The dragon came closer, breathing smoke and fire. Eric raised his shield, but the heat was heavy. Astrid began to sing. Her voice was soft but powerful. The dragon stopped for a moment, listening to her song. Eric saw the chance. He lifted his sword and shouted, "We are not afraid." He ran forward, but the dragon's tail struck the ground, shaking the earth. Astrid cried out, but she did not stop singing. Her song gave Eric courage. The battle was long. Fire burned the trees, smoke filled the air. Eric fought with all his strength. Astrid's song kept his heart alive. Finally, Eric struck the dragon's chest. The beast roared and fell back into the cave. Silence came. The fire slowly died. Eric fell to his knees, tired but alive. Astrid ran to him, tears in her eyes. "You fought bravely," she said. "But it was our love that gave you strength." Eric smiled. "Without you, Astrid, I would have been lost. Together we can face anything, even dragons." That night, under the stars, they held each other. The dragon was defeated, but their love was stronger than ever. After the battle with the dragon, Eric and Astrid walked for many days. The land was quiet, but their hearts were full of fire. They had faced death together, and their love was stronger than ever. One evening, the sky opened with strange light. The stars moved, and the wind carried voices. Astrid whispered, "This is not the world of men. We are close to the gods." Suddenly, a tall figure appeared. His one eye shone like the sun, and ravens flew around him. It was Odin, the All-Father. He looked at Eric and said, "You have fought bravely. You have faced fear and found love. But your journey is not finished." Eric bowed his head. "Tell me, All-Father, what must I do?" Odin raised his hand. "You must travel to the land of shadows. There you will face the truth of your soul. Only then will you be free from the curse of fear." Astrid held Eric's hand tightly. Odin looked at her and smiled. "Love is your shield. Do not forget it. Even in the land of shadows, love will guide you." The light faded, and Odin was gone. The night was silent again, but Eric and Astrid knew their path was clear. They must go to the land of shadows, where fear and destiny waited. Eric and Astrid followed Odin's words. They walked to the edge of the world, where the mountains touched the sky and the rivers disappeared into the earth. There, a dark cave opened like the mouth of a giant. Astrid held Eric's hand. "This is the path to the land of shadows," she said. "If we enter, we may never return. But if we face it together, we will be strong." The cave was cold and silent. Their torches burned weakly, and the air smelled of death. Strange whispers came from the walls. Eric felt fear, but Astrid's hand gave him courage. Deeper inside, they saw spirits walking. Some were crying, some were silent, some looked at them with empty eyes. Astrid whispered, "These are the souls of the forgotten. They cannot leave this place." One spirit came close. It was Paule, the cursed soldier. His face was pale, his eyes full of sorrow. "Do not fight me," he said. "I am trapped here. But you, wanderer, you can break the curse. If you carry love, you can bring light even to this darkness." Eric listened. He raised his sword, but Astrid touched his arm. "No," she said softly. "Love is stronger than steel." Together they spoke a prayer, and Paule's spirit began to fade. For the first time, a soul found peace in the land of shadows. The cave shook. The shadows screamed, but Eric and Astrid stood together. Their love was a light in the dark. The land of shadows could not destroy them. The land of shadows was behind them. Eric and Astrid walked out of the dark cave, their hands still joined. The sky was clear, and the stars shone brighter than ever. They had faced fear, fought dragons, and spoken with gods. Now they carried victory in their hearts. When they returned to the village, the people gathered around them. Children ran to see them, women cried with joy, and men raised their voices in celebration. For the first time in many years, the village was full of hope. Eric lifted his sword to the sky. "We are free from fear," he said. "The curse is broken. Together we are strong." The villagers shouted with him, their voices echoing across the fjord. Astrid stood beside him, her eyes shining. She spoke softly. "This victory is not only ours. It belongs to everyone who chose hope instead of fear." Her words touched the hearts of the people. That night, the village was alive with fire and song. Torches burned, drums played, and voices sang of courage and love. Eric and Astrid sat together, watching the flames. They knew their journey was not finished, but they had won the greatest battle, the battle against fear. From that day, the story of Eric and Astrid was told as a legend. Children listened with wide eyes, and old people smiled with pride. The saga became more than a tale of war. It was a story of love, courage, and victory. After their victory, Eric and Astrid lived with peace in their hearts. The dragon was gone, the shadows were silent, and the curse was broken. But their story did not end. The villagers began to tell their tale. Around the fire, old men spoke of Eric's courage and Astrid's song. Children listened with wide eyes, dreaming of heroes and love. Women repeated Astrid's words. Courage is not only in battle. Courage is also in love. Soon, travelers came from far lands. They wanted to see the place where a warrior and a woman defeated fear together. They asked questions, they listened to songs, and they carried the story back to their homes. The saga grew larger. It was told in villages, in cities, even in the halls of kings. Eric was remembered as the wanderer who faced dragons. Astrid was remembered as the voice that gave hope. Together they became a symbol of courage and love. Years passed, but the story did not fade. Every generation told it again. Some added new details, some sang it as a song, some wrote it in books. The names of Eric and Astrid became eternal. Medveda village was no longer only a place of fear. It became a place of legend. People said, "Here, darkness was faced, and light was found." And so, the saga of Eric and Astrid lived forever. Years passed after the great victory. Eric and Astrid lived in peace, but their names grew larger than life. Songs were sung in distant lands, and travelers carried their story across mountains and seas. Children in other villages played games where one was Eric, the brave wanderer, and another was Astrid, the singer of hope. Their love became a symbol, not only of courage but of light in dark times. One winter, a group of strangers came to Medveda. They brought gifts of gold and silver, but more important, they brought stories. They said, "In our land, people speak of you. They say you faced dragons, shadows, and gods. They say you found victory through love." Eric smiled, but Astrid answered softly, "Victory is not ours alone. It belongs to everyone who chooses hope instead of fear." Her words were remembered, written in books, and repeated in songs. The village built a great fire in the center square. They called it the Eternal Flame. Every year, people gathered around it to tell the saga of Eric and Astrid. The flame burned not only with wood but with memory and love. Even when Eric grew old and Astrid's hair turned white, the flame still burned. They sat together, hand in hand, watching the fire. They knew their story would live forever. And so, Medveda was no longer only a place of fear. It became a place of legend, where darkness was faced and light was found.